Now, if you've lived in any part of Sri Lanka, the last few days have truly been terrible in terms of the weather, with heavy rains, heavy winds, and in certain areas landslides and whatnot as well. To give us an update on the current status of affairs in terms of the weather here in Sri Lanka, we've got Charlene Benedict in the newsroom. Charlene.
Thank you very much, Deshan. Now, the extreme weather conditions that have been reported in the island have already claimed the lives of 15 people across 17 districts. Now, according to the Met Department, a low pressure area is likely to develop in the southeastern part of the Bay of Bengal. Like I said before, 15 people have already died as a result of extreme weather conditions in Sri Lanka, and over 28,000 people have been affected by heavy downpours, landslides and flash floods that have been reported across the country. Here are a few incidents that were reported in Sri Lanka. The Giriyulla town had been inundated due to heavy rains. Our correspondent reported that the Navy and the police took steps to rescue residents of the area.
"38 workers who were trapped in a poultry farm due to extreme weather in Mirigama were rescued today. The Disaster Management Centre office in Gampaha and the army supported the process. Meanwhile, several houses in Kamarankawa in Mirigama were submerged in floods after the Maoya had overflowed. Our correspondent reported that 108 houses in Mirigama were damaged, while 447 people have been displaced.
The Polonnaruwa Somawathiya road has been inundated near the 35th mile post. Water levels of the Mahavali river have also increased in Manampitiya in Polonnaruwa. Pagoda in Bulat Sinhala was completely inundated as the Kuda river has overflown after sluice gates of the Kukuleganga were opened due to heavy rains. Our correspondent reported that the movement of vehicles has been completely suspended along the Bulat Sinhala Molkava road. The Anikat in Mihindupura was blocked after water levels in the Malwatuoya had risen. Several houses had been submerged in water due to this reason. A father of two lost his life amidst heavy rains in Thotagodala. He had braved the weather and travelled through the Thotagoda-Kurundakanda road on a bicycle to feed his children. His children waited in anticipation of their father. They were unaware that he had embarked on his final journey. The remains of the father and his bicycle were found this morning. The Ekala and Kandana roads in Gampaha were also flooded after water levels in the Attanagaluoya had risen. The movement of vehicles in the 6th and 7th milepost areas along the Putlam-Anuradhapura main road was also affected. This is after the sluice gates of the Rajangane reservoir were opened. The Irrigation Department and the Disaster Management Centre have urged people living in low-lying areas to be cautious of floods as water levels of the reservoir continue to rise. The Batekumbra village in Polgahavela was inundated due to heavy rains. The Navy has dispatched a boat to the area to transport people amid floods. Meanwhile, the Kurunagala Colombo main road at Alawa, the Alawa Giriyulla main road at Boyavalana, and the Alawa Nelundeniya road near the Alawa town were flooded. Five sluice gates of the Mahavali Dam were opened to control water levels that began to rise after the sluice gates of the Kotmale reservoir were opened due to heavy rains. 10,000 cubic feet of water is released per second to the Victoria Dam. People in the Tabboa number 1 village were moved to safe shelters as all sluice gates at the Tabboa reservoir were kept open. The Rambe-Weber-Narambala road has been flooded due to heavy rains. Our correspondent said floods were reported in Mayakulama, Maravala, Bandaravatta and Pambala. Meanwhile, patients at the Chilao General Hospital were also affected after the health facility was submerged in floods. A tree and a mound of earth had collapsed onto the Kotmale road in Ulapane, Gampola. This has caused an interruption in power supply. Low-lying lands, by-roads and several main roads in Kurupanava in Nagoda were inundated. Two sluice gates at the Nilamba Reservoir in Doluwa were kept open. Meanwhile, the irrigation department says that floods can be expected in the Alauwa, the Ulapitiya, Meerigama, Pannala, Venappuwa, Nigambo, Katana, Narammala and Dankotuwa areas as the Mahaoya has overflown.
Now, with extreme weather conditions prevalent here in Sri Lanka, a number of tragic incidents where entire families have been torn apart and people have paid the ultimate price with their lives were reported. Here are some such incidents.
Time 2 a.m. Location Udagalde near Rambukana. Three people were found dead after a mound of earth collapsed on their home in Rambukana. The deceased are a 38-year-old mother, her 13-year-old daughter and her 8-year-old relative.
Hello?
Dr. Suminda Gamage, the director of the Rambukana hospital, said the father was injured. He had been transferred to the Kegol hospital. The district secretary said early warnings on the risk of landslides in the area were issued.
The
tragedy is that the Rambukana divisional secretary and the Gramiladari officers have warned them of the danger and asked them to leave the area. The warnings were given to the residents of two houses. The people of one house had left, but the people who were inside this house did not leave and had met this tragic fate.
As you can see, there is heavy downpour here in Rambukana in the Kegol district. 200 families have been told to evacuate due to landslide warnings. Now 10 houses have been fully damaged and 25 houses have been partially damaged in the Kegol district. Now due to the extreme weather that is prevailing in the country, 3 deaths have been reported in the Kegol district and 1 person has been injured. The authorities have issued landslide warnings to this area and they urge people to move away from areas that are prone to high-risk landslide. You can stay close to Newsfirst as we keep you updated about the extreme weather across the island. For the Newsfirst team, I am Rohaza reporting to you from Rambukana in the Kegol district.
3 homes were damaged in a landslide that occurred 3 kilometers from the location of this incident. At around 4 in the morning, I heard a large noise. A large mound of earth had collapsed. The entire house was damaged. All belongings in the house have been buried under the soil. We managed to escape a couple of minutes before this happened. We lost everything that we earned since we were born. We don't even have a bed or a place to live in. We have lost the belongings of our children. A 23-year-old had died after a mound of earth collapsed onto his house in Vennoruwa, Narammala. Sandhuni Jayasuriya was employed at a private hospital in Colombo. At around 1 in the morning, an earth embankment collapsed onto her house, sending the wall crashing into her room. Her mother and brother were fortunate enough to escape death, but Sandhuni was not so lucky. Landslides had occurred in Lower Kadugannava. Our correspondent reported that 6 shops were damaged by the landslides. Movement of vehicles along the Kandy-Colombo main road was also affected in Kadugannava.
The Disaster Management Centre plays a very key and important role in ensuring the safety of the general public as well as their property. Now, operations at the Disaster Management Centre, of course, these days are very hectic. They are engaged in coordinating and managing these natural disasters, directing people to safe shelters and informing the relevant authorities of these situations and coordinating the response to these incidents. Newsfirst's Ahmed Buzo visited the Disaster Management Centre to get a first person's perspective into how operations are run at the Disaster Management Centre at these times when they are ensuring the safety of both you and I.
Right now, I'm inside the Emergency Operations Center of the Disaster Management Center, where the processing of all data with regards to the disaster location is being conducted. We are now inside the call center of the Disaster Management Center, where the calls of several people who've been affected across the country are being answered and directed to the relevant authorities.
As at now, we have 19 safety centers with 385 people, families and 1,671 individuals. Plus, we have 384 families in friends and relatives shelter with 1,334 people. All in all, we have 8,820 people, families with 23,638 individuals who has suffered bad situations due to this weather conditions.
Certain areas in Colombo too were inundated due to the heavy rains that were experienced. Newsfirst Senator Sena Nayaka brings you this report of the situation in Colombo.
Similar to many parts of the island, Borel too has been experiencing extreme weather conditions during the past few days, and even last night Borel experienced heavy rainfall along with strong gusty winds and lightning as well. And by this morning, even though that weather condition disappeared, by this morning it picked its pace back up again by the afternoon and rained here and there on and off. By now, this area, Borella, is experiencing a very gloomy atmosphere along with a sullen sky, so the weather condition is a bit unpredictable. I'm Senator Sena Nayaka reporting for News First.
Several areas in the Kandy district also were inundated due to heavy downpours and flash floods. Now, News First's Disal Kapuge brings you this update from the Kandy district. Disal, how's the situation in Kandy?
Right now I'm in the Kandy district, specifically in the Mavil Mada area, and as you can see right now it is raining here, and it has been raining continuously for the past couple of days into this area. Now it is unusual in the Kandy district to experience this much heavy rainfall in the month of November, where we usually expect rainfall during the month of December, but however we can observe a change in weather patterns where it has started to rain this heavily during the early days of November. And in the afternoon, it was reported that 5 gates of the Polgola Dam were also opened, and it was also reported that 6 gates at the Victoria Dam, which hosts the largest reservoir along the Mahavali River, 6 gates of the Victoria Dam were also opened in order to discharge water collected in these reservoirs. Now, this reflects on the amount of water that is collected in the Mahavali River basin, which comes down from the Central Highlands and the Kandy district.
Generally, when we speak about overflowing of rivers and flash floods, many areas are inundated, usually due to the overflowing of the Kalni River. Taking a look at the situation surrounding the Kalni River, the Irrigation Department has said that the water level of the Kalni River in areas including Dehiyovita and Ruanvella has reduced to a certain degree. The Department of Irrigation added that, however, minor flooding that was reported in Biyagama, Kolonnava, Colombo and Wattala due to the overflowing of the Kalni River may increase in the coming hours, and as such it is important that the general public living in low-lying areas within these districts be cautious of this situation, especially if heavy downpours continue to persist throughout the night. Be safe, be cautious,